Welcome, everyone. We'll begin in a few minutes. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 6:05. My name is Sharon Roseborough, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to attend this training. This training is mandatory for all officers. The purpose of the training is to help you as volunteers in your roles at the local level. I would like to introduce Kathy Lindenbaum, our New Jersey PTA State President, to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming and spending your time with us this evening to take your mandatory training. I won't keep you long now because we have a great program ahead. Please just always remember New Jersey PTA is here for you, and whatever you need, we're here to support in any way.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right, so how do you PTA there at the local level? You do that by investing in your child's potential, volunteering for your child's potential, and also advocating for your child's potential, which is truly our mission of the PTA. I'd like to introduce the rest of the state leaders tonight that will be conducting the training. We have Lynette Howard, who is our Vice President of Advocacy. Ginger Reinhold, who is our New Jersey PTA President. Stephanie Bowe, who is our State Bylaws Chair. And we're also fortunate enough to have an office staff led by Robert Chera, who is our Director of Member and Board Services. If you ever have any questions or if you need an answer right away, please call our office Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 p.m. and Rob could answer any questions that you may have. He was a past volunteer, in case some of you guys may know him from that. So to be honest, it's probably not a question that he can't answer. So if you need information, if you need help, if you have a meeting that day and it's like, I need to have an answer before my meeting, give Rob a call and he can help you out. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can use the chat box or the question box. We'll answer them as we go through the presentation. If you need clarification on anything we've said, we do stay online for about 15 minutes after the training. We're excited to say that our registration for our 2021 virtual convention is now open. You know, we would have loved to have it in person, but due to COVID, it is going to be virtual this year. The cost is $50 per person, but it's well worth it. The weekend will include general meetings and virtual workshops. We have our reflections program. And just like you need your members to attend your local general membership meeting to have a quorum, we at the state level need you to come and attend our general membership meetings because you are our quorum. You make up our general membership. So we really do need you to attend. We have our state elections this year, as well as some bylaws changes that hopefully you guys are going to be happy with and vote on them. You also have the opportunity to submit nominations for an Outstanding Educator Award. If you have an administrator or teacher who your local just feels have gone above and beyond to support your PTA mission, please submit their names. We also have the local PTA Success Awards. If you are doing great things in your PTA, celebrate it by submitting an award. You can find this information on our website, and we'll put that information as www.njpta.org. But and if you have any questions about the applications or the awards, as I said, give Rob a call. He can answer your questions, or he'll refer you over to Lisa, who is our convention workshop chair this year. And they can help you and walk you through the application, but it's really, really easy. And we'd love to have a lot of awards this year. Next slide, Rob. We are excited to have our New Jersey PTA Local Leaders Facebook group. This gives you an opportunity to get ideas and network with PTAs across the state. It's easy to join, so please join today. And without further ado, I'm going to start the training and introduce Lynette Howard, who will be talking about advocating in PTA.
Hello and welcome. My name is Lynette Howard, and I am the Vice President of Advocacy for New Jersey PTA. In this presentation, we will explore a brief overview of advocating in PTA. Next slide, please. But before we dive into advocacy in the work of this association and your role in helping make it successful, it is important that we understand just how central advocacy is to the mission of the association. PTA's purpose is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. So as you know, PTA is a powerful voice for children. It's a relevant resource for your families and communities. We advocate for the well-being and education of all children. With this core mission in mind, let's talk about how PTA's advocacy efforts are unique from other organizations and how our collective voice can and should be a driver of local, state, and national policies to benefit not only your child, but every child. As the mission states, the purpose and principles in the PTA bylaws all contribute to the achieving this single mission, our mission. Next slide, please. So what does being an advocate mean to you and your community? PTA takes action in many ways. You can begin by attending your PTA meetings, your school board meetings, and community events, and speak up on topics of interest to you and your family. Next slide, please. So I'm sure when most of you joined the PTA, you probably heard about the fundraising and thought to yourself, that's what PTA is all about. Sad to say, and glad to say, this perception is absolutely false. PTA was founded by advocates and has a strong history of impacting education policy, not fundraising. Yes, we fundraise so that we can bring programs to your families and to your children, but that's not our purpose. Did you know that this work began in 1897 when a group of mothers wanted to protect the well-being of endangered children? So as you can see, PTA has been around advocating for many years. For a complete history of PTA and how it began with the brave women in leadership, please check out and visit pta.org. Next slide, please. So what is advocacy and what does it mean to you? Let's think about that for a moment. Some would say to express views or to speak out. What do you think? Next slide, please. Did you come up with any of these? As you review the list, I will share what the dictionary says. To advocate is to publicly support or recommend, to speak up and out about an issue, to help others understand a problem, to influence the thinking for the good of others, or for social change that will improve or eliminate a problem. So, of course, other words also support this idea of advocacy. You could be a supporter, a backer, a promoter, proponent, campaigner, fighter, crusader, and last but not least, champion. So when you think about it, PTA advocates are champions for children. That's what we are. That's what you are, a true champion. Next slide, please. Simply put, advocacy is sharing a story or experience that your child, school, or community is dealing with and turning it into an action item or request for a new policy, protocol, change in funding formula, or improving training opportunities. Now we have a lot of new issues that have arisen. Due to COVID, there are several issues that have arrived, and it may be one that's affecting you and your child. Don't be afraid to speak up. Next slide, please. When you think about what PTA has accomplished, they accomplished plenty over the last several years, and our work is still not done. So some of the things that PTA has accomplished is the creation of kindergarten classes, child labor laws, public health services, hot and healthy lunch programs, juvenile justice system, mandatory immunization, arts and education, and school safety. Next slide, please. So who are the advocates? You are surrounded by them daily. You, all PTAs are advocates. All, as a local leader, you are the front line advocates. Once you have made a commitment, you decided to engage families in your school work. The volunteer work that you do is advocacy, and it all begins at home. Advocacy begins with understanding the concerns of family, the needs of students and teachers, the goals of the school administration, and then it continues as you build a PTA plan that aims to engage in that solution. That is advocacy. Next slide, please. So what do we mean by grassroots advocacy? It's addressing the issues of the people directly affected by the problem or issues to take action to win a solution. Grassroots advocacies begin with you. As you see, grassroots advocacy involves communicating with the general public, engaging with elected officials at the local, state, and federal levels, and raise public awareness on issues so our members can encourage public opinion, regulation, and public policy. Next slide, please. We also address federal issues. New Jersey PTA has a federal legislation chair. Our chair is Rosa Chair, and she brings up-to-date federal legislation to us to share. When our government's committees work on policies, Rose will list all of this, and as she brings this instrumental work for us to take action on campaigns. Currently, National PTA is hosting LegCon, where local and state PTAs take the time to reach out to our legislators on important issues in education. National PTA is hosting this from March 9th to 11th. Please feel free to reach out to us at njpta@njpta.org for additional information. Next slide, please. How can you become a better advocate? You can begin by attending advocacy events on the state level. Sign up for our Vote of Voice program platform. We have e-learning courses that are hosted by National PTA at pta.org. Attend a Department of Education focus group or participate in one of their surveys, or just attend one of their meetings. Volunteer to testify at a public hearing, or write and submit a resolution, which we can help you with. Next slide, please. So how can you advocate? By writing a position statement, again, preparing a resolution, or participating in our call and action campaign. Your PTA may have been involved in some of all of the different types. But for addressing the underlying problem in your state, district, or school, grassroots is the most powerful approach. If you have any questions on anything that we have discussed in this advocacy program, please feel free to reach out at njpta@njpta.org, and we will be happy to assist you in any advocacy efforts. Thank you so much for your time. Our next presenter is our New Jersey PTA President, Kathy Lindenbaum.
Thank you, Lynette, for that great information. Like she said, we're all advocates. We're an advocacy association, so please get involved that way. So for presidents and vice presidents leading your local PTA, next slide, please. What is your role as a PTA president and a vice president? Well, I'm going to start off by saying that you lead the PTA. Your job is to unite the people, be all inclusive, all the things that everyone does, membership, advocacy. These are things that you oversee. You also oversee the financial and legal obligations. Remember, the buck stops with you. You do have a treasurer, you should have a budget committee. But in the end, if something happens, it's going to come back to you. And I know you're going to hear the treasurer's training, so you'll hear all the ins and outs. But, always remember, as president, you should be going over your financials every month. When those come in, you should have a sign into your bank account. You should go in as president and look at that. In fact, anyone who's on the bank account should be doing that. You preside over the meetings. Remember, in the meetings, you should stay neutral. You don't vote unless it's by ballot or to make or break a tie. Try to be neutral so people do not feel uncomfortable stating how they feel. You represent the PTA. Only you represent the PTA at outside organizations, with the principal, with any groups, unless you ask someone to do that for you. So if you can't be somewhere, or you feel that someone on your board has a little more expertise in something, you can ask them to represent the PTA, or you guys can go together. If it's a meeting with the principal and they want to talk about a fundraiser, bring your fundraiser chairperson with you. Try to be all inclusive, but remember, you represent the PTA. Foster relationships and partnerships in the community. Get out there, ask people to join your PTA, because remember, again, membership is everyone's everyone's job. And really, the president is the one that, represents the PTA, like we said, and being out there in the community, asking people. And, you don't only go to ask them for things, invite them to your meeting, invite them to be speakers, or if you have a speaker coming that you think, one of, the other nonprofits in your area or a business might benefit from, ask them to come in, whether it's a Zoom, especially now that a lot of them are Zoom meetings. You could invite more people and communicate with your members, however that is, whether it's by email, member hub, however you communicate with your members. Next slide, please. Things no one told me. You may not engage in business unrelated to the purposes of PTA. Always go back to your mission. Always try to look over your bylaws, your mission statement, so that you know that what you get your 501(c) status from New Jersey PTA, that's our mission is for educational purposes. So, sometimes you could be a little creative, but if there's any questions at all, that's why you're a PTA. Call the office, reach out to someone at NJPTA, or just go on the website and look for an email. You cannot endorse products, companies, or foundations. You can lose your nonprofit if you do that. Even if you have an educational foundation in your town, you can endorse that. Even though you might have almost the same mission, you could work together, but don't endorse them. You can accept donations. We encourage you to accept donations. Sometimes just watch where you're accepting donations. A little funny story: when I was actually, it was a school board member, but I was also a PTA president. There was a store in the area that was an adult store, and that's what I'll say. And they wanted to give a big donation, and we decided that we didn't feel that we would want to put that in our newsletter and accept that donation. So you can say no. You can say that you don't want to accept a donation. Go over it with your board of directors. When you get something that you think might be questionable, vet them, go online, Google them. Google is a great tool, and decide if that's what you want to do. Ensure you have diversity. Your PTA board should look like your members. And if they're not volunteering, go out there and ask them. Make sure, that's something as a president, that's your job to do. Parents want to help, but they like to be asked. Just go out. There's parents in your school. You might have some retired, educators. The retired educators are a great resource, because a lot of retired educators miss what they're doing and they like to come in and help with stuff. So look in your community, like send out a survey, through your member hub. You can do that. Ask the teachers, say, do you know of anyone that does whatever you're looking for? If it's an accountant you need or whatever, find out, because if you ask, some people will say yes. Not all members share the same beliefs, and they may not know what you know. So just remember that when you're doing that. Remember to ask the question, to yourself, when you're doing stuff, is this going to benefit the children and the community in our schools? Next slide, please. So great leaders, which I know we have great leaders in PTA. They inspire others to take action. You have to be, decide you might want to do something one way, but maybe that doesn't work in your community. So you have to compromise a little bit just to match whatever you're doing, and transform potential into reality. And just be respectful of everyone. Next slide, please. What the president should know. All the aspects of PTA. The most important thing is to know the rules and go by the rules. Know your bylaws. Make sure your standing rules are up to date. Know nonprofit laws. Know it sounds like a whole lot, but you're taking your first step here by coming to by doing your training. Go to convention. Go to the PTA events. You'd be surprised what you learn. Even if you learn a couple of new things, even if you feel like, okay, I've been around a long time, I know stuff, there's always something to learn. PTA, again, you just had the whole advocacy PowerPoint slide from Lynette, but just remember, we do great stuff. We some of the things that Lynette didn't answer, we've been advocating for preschool programs in New Jersey for many, many years. I want to say about 8 to 10 years. And yesterday, the governor is putting $50 million more into that program so that hopefully our goal in New Jersey PTA is so that every school district in New Jersey has a preschool, a quality preschool program that parents could send their children to. So that's one of the many things we advocated for, parent choice. During this during COVID, where parent and district choice, that districts can choose based upon their community, what's good for their community, and parents can choose whether to send their children back in person, hybrid, or be all virtual. So we're very proud of our advocacy team for doing that. And begin looking for your replacement from day one on the job. Now that might sound a little crazy, but when you put so much work and effort into something, you want to make sure when you're gone that they're not calling you every single day. Not that you might not mind, but still you want to have a little bit of rest, but that you're leaving your association in good hands, because why would you want to work so hard for it to just go down the drain? And you want the best way, not your way or his way, but you're a democracy. We're not a dictatorship in PTA. So know that doing everything trains no one. Well, sometimes we know it is easier just to do it yourself, but it doesn't get anyone trained, and it doesn't leave that information moving on. Like sometimes, I'm told that by our state secretary, sometimes you can't do everything, make sure that you give other people stuff to do so that everyone knows what to do. Next slide, please. Encourage participation. Again, like I said before, people like to be asked. Don't assume members know everything. Don't assume your board knows everything too. You might, think, okay, everyone knows that, PTA has to do this, but maybe they don't. So, at the risk of repeating yourself, make sure that, you say what is going to be happening. When you receive the information from New Jersey PTA, National PTA, give that out, not only to your board, give it to your members, because there might be something, again, you might strike something in a member, and let them know the value of PTA. Again, delegate your jobs and then let people do them. Again, sometimes that might be hard, might not be exactly the way you want it done, but as long as the job is getting done, let them do it. And by all means, keep a sense of humor. Next slide, please. Okay, what are your duties? Well, you preside over all the board of directors and general membership meetings. Run an orderly, time-efficient meeting with a planned agenda. Have your committees have their reports in, have a written report in, have it in a couple days before the meeting. A week would be great before the meeting. We always send out on the state level, everything goes out at least a week before the meeting. All reports to do about, I think 10 days before the meeting. As the president, go over it and make sure you, excuse me, I have dogs, I apologize for that. Ensure that the goals of your PTA are being carried out according to your budget. So it is a committee's job, committee chairperson's job, to make sure that their budget, is followed. It's the treasurer's job, but you as president, it's also your job. Go over it, ask what they're doing, and ask for, make sure that everything is in order, because, sometimes people do go over budgets, but then you need to amend that at your meeting. Okay, again, be fully aware of all your PTA's financial activity. I think I said that before. Make sure that, you go over the bank statements. You're the one as president that signs all the contracts and legal documents. Only the president does that. I know some PTAs think the fundraising chair does it, or the fundraising VP, but no, you as the president do. You also sit ex officio on every committee except the nominating committee and the financial review committee. The nominating committee, it's because you should not be involved in that. You do not want people to feel uncomfortable. And the financial review committee, not only you should not be sitting on that committee, but any check signer should not be on that committee. And the treasurers will go more into that. Ensure everyone is doing their job, especially, again, the treasurer. make sure that's your job to do that. And if they're not doing their job, you have to sit down and have those difficult conversations. But, you know, sometimes it just might be they need more support or they don't know what to do. Sometimes that's all it is. They're not sure what to do and they need a little support and they, for some reason, won't ask. Next slide, please. Before the meeting, prepare your agenda along with the secretary. I always like to say too, once the agenda, you know, give a call to your principal to ask, or your teacher liaison, however you, you know, corresponds with your administration, to see if there's something they would like to add on to that agenda. Remind everyone who will be reporting at the meeting, they should be prepared. The worst thing would be, you know, you call on someone at the meeting, have a couple questions for them, and they didn't know that they were going to be on the agenda. Remind the secretary to have the meeting minutes as quickly as they can, even, you know, couple days, a week after the meeting. This way it's fresh in your head. I always make notes on my agenda too, but if there's something that you might need some time to prepare for the next meeting for, it's better than having it a couple days before the meeting and looking back and saying that you didn't do something you said you would follow up on. Remind the treasurer to have the report prepared, and gather everything you need to be prepared. Next slide, please. During the meeting, start on time, follow your agenda. Again, take notes, encourage participation. If you see someone sitting there and they look like they might be raising their hands a little bit, but then put it down when someone speaks, you know, ask them if they have something to say. Seek input, send out your agenda ahead of the meeting, you know, to your members through Member Hub. Member Hub is a great resource right now. Don't rehash the past. If something happened, you have to move forward. Sometimes there are people that just like to, you know, talk about it, and there's nothing you could do about things that happened in the past. You can only do things to correct, but you can't change the past. Don't do debates at meetings, especially do not have someone stand up and complain about, you know, something that's happening to their student, or complain about a specific teacher, or complain about the principal. That's something that you can politely ask them to, you know, take it to the principal. If the principal attends your meeting, now we're doing a lot of Zoom meetings, ask them to email the principal. Don't get into that. Ensure members understand the method of voting and what is being voted on. So when a motion is made and seconded, and then you have your debate, you ask for your debate before the vote, make sure you as the chair repeat the motion and say, you know, if you want to buy 10 books for the library, you're voting yes. If you don't want to buy those 10 books for the library, you're voting no, so that everyone understands what they're doing. And again, be courteous to all. Make sure everyone at the meeting is courteous to everyone too. Next slide, please. After the meeting, be sure the secretary sends you a copy of the minutes. Again, we discussed that already. Follow up on any assignments or programs or anything that was talked about in the meeting, and that especially if you said you'd get back by a certain date, whether it be the next meeting or you're going to get back to someone, do that. Even if you don't have the information, just get back to them and say, I don't have the information right now. I'll be back to you when I do. Update the procedure books and the running list of duties. It's good to maybe start one by month, so this way it's easy at the end of the month. You could write it down, even if it's something in your phone in the notes section, then you can just email it to yourself. And evaluate the meeting, what you could have done better, what, you know, you should have added, and the work that your association is doing. Next slide, please. Okay, where is the help? Of course, bylaws, like we talked about, and you'll hear about later on, standing rules. They'll go over that in that segment, but those two are the things. And always have a Robert's Rules of Order book. They have those cheat sheets that you could get. They have them on PTA, this shop PTA, but I think, you know, Barnes and Noble and a couple of, I know Amazon, I did order some off of Amazon for myself. Those are always good to have because you can go over how a motion is done. PTA.org. There's great e-learning courses. They give you the amount of time you need. Of course, the trainings, if you have a council in your area, council trainings. So our resource hub on njpta.org is awesome. There are handbooks, forms, member hub. There's even a little search thing now that you can put in what you're looking for, it comes up. And there's also an area there, if Rob put it in the chat box too. There's also an area there if there's something that you think should be on there, you can put that in. There's sample agendas, running list of duties, the PTA letterhead, numbers, contact information, transition checklist. It's really great. Next slide, please. And these are just samples of agendas. I'm not, you can get this online too on the resource hub. So vice president's duties. According to your bylaws, the role of the vice president is to act as an aide to the president and perform the duties of the president in the president's absence. So in your standing rules, you'll assign your VP the duties. So we don't put this in the bylaws, especially if, you know, I'm sure you've heard, or if you haven't heard yet, Stephanie will talk a little bit about it, that we're putting standard bylaws up at convention this year. So especially then, but you should never have in your bylaws if, you know, what the vice president's going to do. That would all go in your standing rules, what they oversee. Next slide, please. Your relationship with the principal. So your principal runs the school, you run the PTA. You are the CEO of the PTA and the principal is the CEO of the school. I hope all of you have been meeting with your principal, especially now during COVID. You know, I always say, you know, in the beginning, right, in the beginning of your term, in July, in the summer, even in June, before you start, once you're elected, you know, have that initial meeting and meet monthly. I always like to meet right before, a week before the meeting, the PTA meeting, so you can discuss, you know, what they would like to see the PTA do. If there's anything that you think, you know, is going to come up at the meeting, you know, let them know. Make sure you keep everything that you talk about. If the principal asks you to keep it confidential, make sure you keep it confidential. Don't even tell that one other person, because everyone has the one person they talk to. And if something gets out, you're going to lose that trust and the principal will never trust you again. The principal or the principal's designee serves as a member of your board of directors. Find out with the principal what you need approval for, how they, you know, want you to send out flyers. Most people just now, I believe, you know, are green, most schools, and they don't do backpack flyers, but just find out all that stuff and set an example for the volunteers. Follow the principal's rules. Next slide, please. Social media. So this has come up a lot lately, especially too with COVID. Be relevant, stay on topic, just put factual stuff up there. Be respectful, don't get into a fight with anyone. Obviously avoid abusive, offensive language, threats, hates, any violence. Don't make jokes about, you know, sometimes you think something's funny and it's really not funny to everyone. So just be very careful. Be honest, you know, use your name. Don't post, don't endorse by commercial messages. Don't be endorsing any, even donors for your PTA. Don't say, hey, you know, Mike's Pizza is great. They donated pizza to us on Fridays. Go eat Mike's Pizza. No, you can't do that. Be careful with the copyrighted materials that belong to someone else. Just be careful with social media. Be discreet. Don't publish phone numbers. If you're going to publish any pictures on there, make sure you get in writing that you're allowed to do that. Just think about basically what you're putting up there. Sometimes it's just best to post your flyers, just post any of that. And if, you know, you could avoid the chat room, just use it as informational. That's also something that's good, because you really could get yourself with something you might think is, you know, okay to put up there, and it might not be. And definitely do not do any political stuff on there. And even if your PTA elections, you can put your slate up there and that's it. Don't be saying, you know, there's been instances in PTAs where people are, you know, politicking for votes on the PTA's social media. You can't do that. Next slide, please. This is the standards of affiliation, the checklist for your PTA. to stay in good standing. So I know it's very small, but you can find this on the resource page. Next slide, please. So 1 to 3 will be covered under the finances, and 9 to 10 will be covered under the bylaws part of this training. And next slide, passing the baton, your transitions of your leadership is really important to the future of PTA. You should be trying to get people interested in wanting to take, run for positions, be friendly, be inviting, include everyone, try to make it fun. No one wants to do anything, especially when you're not getting paid. We're all volunteers. You want to have fun. Follow proper nominating and election procedures. There's handbooks at newjerseypta.org. You all have a region director. You can contact the office at njpta. There is no reason to say that you don't know what to do, because there's plenty of ways to find out what to do. Don't recycle your offices. This makes it seem like you don't need new people. People see the same faces and they're like, well, they don't need me, or she's going to do it. We don't have to worry about it. She does a great job. And you probably do a great job, but it's always nice to get those fresh faces in there. Next, please. Make sure all officers and committee chairmen pass on procedure books and the records, even if it's something on, online. If it's on a flash drive, if it's a paper book, make sure that they get that information, because that's the PTA property. The president, you should keep a running list of everything you do. It's helpful for the new president to know what to do, when to do. Like I said, the monthly, just, it's very easy. I do it in my phone and then I email it to myself. And you can even put that as part of your report too. So you do that as your report to your general members, and then you can pass that on. Outgoing and incoming officers should have an orientation meeting. And then all new officers, remember, they have training. Please remember to remind them. And if anyone's interested, they can go on the PTA website and, take one of the trainings there so that they can see what they're supposed to do. Next slide, please. And there we have national PTA awards and grants, local PTA recognition awards. The Reflections program is a great program. All this information, again, is at your fingertips. If there's anything you need, I know I I feel like there's so much more I can tell you. You can always reach out to me. I'll put my information in the chat room with any questions. And then if you have questions, you could type them in and we'll answer them. So I want to say, I think that's it for my presentation. Yes, it is. And I believe this is membership. I was going to type in the chat box now. Yes. And Rob, our member of board, a director of board and member services, will be doing our membership. Rob?
Thank you, Kathy. Let me just make sure everything is okay. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about membership in your PTA. Obviously, this year, with everything going on with COVID, it has been a very interesting year, especially in terms of membership, but that hasn't stopped our PTAs from still doing amazing, great work. I was on, just a quick side note, I was on where I live, I was on the town's Board of Education meeting last night, where we have, I think there's 14 schools and I think 11 of them have PTAs, and the Board of Education was just singing the praises of all the great things that the PTAs were doing, because in their minds, they were like, PTAs will just stop, they can't be in the school, some people can't be in the school, but because of the great passion that we have as PTA members, obviously PTA did not stop this year. So we just want to talk a little bit about things you can do for the rest of this year, and then looking ahead towards the 2021-2022 school year. So a lot of times membership, regardless in the time of COVID or during we'll probably start calling normal times, there are 3 steps that we like to say are the key to PTA, and especially to PTA membership. So the first one is make it easy to join, which I'll talk about in a little bit. You want to make the case for PTA. People want to join things that sound exciting, that sound worthwhile. So you want to make, anytime you're talking about membership and anytime you're talking about your PTA, you want to make it sound like the best thing since sliced bread, and make an effective ask. sometimes people just want to be asked, especially in elementary schools or middle, any level, when it's a new grade level coming in, those parents just want to be asked to be part of something. They may be shy, and you have to ask them. So the first one, the goal is to make it easy. So like Kathy spoke on, we have Member Hub. Member Hub is our New Jersey PTA membership platform, but it's so much more than that. It allows for each local PTA in New Jersey to set up a free e-store that can include not only membership, but your spiritware, tickets to events, and so much more. There's also a lot of PTAs have a general button where you can just make any donation. It's open donation. You put the amount in. So many PTAs have added that, and it's been such a great thing for them because it's just extra funds to do great things for the kids at the school. It only takes a few minutes if you don't have it set up yet. All you need is your PTA's EIN number and your bank account information handy. And it's 1, 2, 3, and then it's done. You set it up. You'll put, if you have different levels, if you have a teacher membership, parent membership, or 2-person membership, and they're all different prices, you could set that all up. And then it's great because people can join membership, buy some spiritware, and make an open donation all at the same time. Also, something new that just started recently this school year is Give Back. So when you subscribe to Give Backs, excuse me, your PTA can place special offers from businesses in your e-store and reward families with savings while you earn up to 20% back on each of those donated sales. Recently, when it first started, it was just a lot of products, but recently, I think around the holiday times, they started pushing it a lot, and a lot of them are still on there. There are so many gift card offers where it's like, buy a $50 gift card for, I think it's like $45, and then you still get a percentage back. If there's also a tab when you're in the admin portal that if you think there's great give backs that you may want to see on the give back, you can put their information in there, and Member Hub will reach out to them to see if they're interested in joining the give back program. And then obviously you want to make it easy. Tell everyone in your school community. Once you do this, it makes it so easy. We have a lot of PTAs this year because of COVID and because of not being able to go to school that did 100% online membership. They use the Member Hub store completely online, and almost, some exceeded their memberships from last year. Some are coming very close. So it's making it easy because people still want to join the PTA. PTA has done so many great things in each of your schools for so many years. They obviously want to join, even during a hard time. So you can share the link anywhere. If you have any questions on this, you can go to Member Hub and they have a great chat, or you can call the office or email the office and we will get you all set up on there. Remember, and you can put the signature, put the link in your email signature, like have you joined PTA yet? Share it in all your emails because you never know people that may have not joined the year before. And remember, membership is open to anyone and everyone. We just started a new PTA in Monmouth County, and I posted on Facebook, congratulations to the Bradley Beach PTA, which I think someone's on from Bradley Beach today. Congratulations to the Bradley Beach PTA, our newest PTA. And people on Facebook, we have someone from there's PTA in the European Congress, someone from Europe joined their PTA, someone from California joined the PTA. They have like 6 or 7 members that just joined because they were so excited that you could join online first off, and that they're joining the PTA family. Then you want to make the case for PTA. Why PTA? Why do we do it? And especially during this time, why PTA? And there was not a better time that National PTA put together this new membership campaign. Obviously, it wasn't because of COVID. It was the work for many years, but it's brought so much more notoriety and resources to our PTAs that we've never been able to have in so many years. So if you see on the right-hand side of your screen, those are just some of the publicity items that you can use. All of the stuff is customizable, and I'll show you more of them in a couple of slides. So use social media, use Twitter, use Facebook, use Instagram, brand everything. Use your PTA logo on everything. When people start seeing that logo, whether it's the national PTA logo that you customize for your PTA, or if it's a PTA logo with like your school mascot, whatever you use, make sure you're putting it on everything. Because when people start to see that, they'll know, oh, this event's going to be great because the PTA is hosting it. value provided, impact on children and families. What have you done? Share that. Share the great things that you were able to do. Of course, this year, so many things may have had to been canceled or converted to virtually, but your PTAs have been doing such great things for so many years. Make sure you're still sharing the great things and the things that you've been able to purchase or supply or advocate for your schools. Share that with the prospective members, share it with your school community so people understand why it's important for them to be part of something so much bigger. What does their support mean? So by telling them all these great things, you can share with them that by supporting the PTA, by joining the PTA this year, you're supporting this and so much more and allowing us to do so much more. You can also go low tech too, pick up the phone, call people. You can, some schools, I don't know nowadays how many still get lists, but if you get, class lists still, pick up the phone and call some new kindergarten parents, just welcome them to the school. It's obviously, I keep saying it, but it's hard this year, but say that, in the upcoming year, we're hoping that we're going to be able to have more committees again. And we would be so excited if you would join some of those committees. People want to be asked sometimes, like I said. And then, of course, use the membership campaign toolkit, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then ask. No one is going to join unless there's going to be those people. You have those people every year automatically will join the PTA. You have those people where if you send an email with your member hub link or you send, the paper copy of the membership form, you're going to always get it back from those people, and they may not ever attend a meeting or ever attend an event. But that's okay because they're still supporting the PTA. But a lot of those people won't join unless you're asking them to join. And that's why I put a magic hat there, because the magic sometimes is by just asking someone to join, they're going to join. Like my example with the Bradley Beach PTA, we didn't even ask them to join. We congratulated this PTA. Someone put in the comments, oh, do they have a link to join online? I said, sure they do. And I put it, and we had this array of people that just started joining because they saw something so great. PTA supports critical academic needs. PTA gives voice on important issues, especially during this year. We had so many PTAs across our state that were instrumental in the reopening committees, and still to this day, as I know a lot of schools are going into the next phase in these next few weeks. Parents are still vital, especially the PTA members on a lot of these committees. PTA built strong, inclusive, and welcoming community. And through this one, we got to think a lot, post-pandemic, or hopefully during our next school year. People are going to want to see people. We may not be hugging yet, we still may be elbowing, but people are going to want to do things. People are going to want to get out of their house. People are going to want to meet other parents. People are going to want to meet other people, see other people. So start thinking of how we can build this in the years to come. If you're feeling down, if your PTA is feeling down because you're like, all of our, our auction can't happen this year, all of our great spring events can't happen this year, start planning ahead for the fall. Think of a great fall event that hopefully, we'll be able to do, whether it's socially distanced or not socially distanced, with masks or without masks. What can you do in the year to come now to not only grow your PTA, grow the support for your PTA, but make your PTA better than it's ever been because of all the changes that we had to go through? You'll meet so many people just by doing this. And then while you're asking, you want to make sure it's an effective ask. You don't want to just say, oh, do you want to join the PTA? And they say no. And you're like, cool, okay, that's fine. You want to make them excited. You want to make them want to join your PTA. So tell your PTA story. Why did you join PTA? Or, sometimes people call this your elevator speech. It's an elevator speech is this quick, 20 to 30 seconds blurb on why you do something that you love. And in this case, PTA. Why do you love PTA? Why did you join PTA? What are the great things that brought you into your PTA that made you never want to leave? The why as well as the what is so important. And this is how we PTA. So you can show them through your elevator speech all the favorite things you have. Why don't you come join us and see what you will love? Maybe you'll find out through talking to them that they enjoy music, and maybe they're going to be your next lip sync chairperson. So you never know. So by asking and making an effective ask, they'll be able to come join you and show their support You want to be strategic and deliberative in the messaging value. So you want to make sure, obviously, if you're going to a kindergarten orientation, your effective ask is going to be a little bit different than if you're talking to a 5th grade parent. So obviously, you just want to adjust that accordingly. Implement a communication plan. Make sure that, you know, after you talk to them that first time and they're so excited, make sure you have a plan in place, not just for them, but for all your members, that you're continuously making sure that people are being contacted. Because you've all probably seen it. I mean, not this year because we didn't sit in, you know, libraries or cafeterias this year for our first PTA meeting, but you've seen it at first PTA meetings. You know, you have those people that will come in, they'll sit in the back of the room. Maybe you'll see them again in October, maybe November, and then they just kept sitting in the back and they weren't engaged, or, you know, someone didn't bring them in. I've been to PTAs a lot where instead of, obviously, you know, a lot of times the officers, the exec board, the officers may sit in the front of the room. There's been PTAs where the officers sit amongst all the parents, and then they'll just come up to the front of the room when it's their time to talk, because then it gets them, you know, it's like they're splitting the room up to say, how many people can you meet in this PTA meeting? And it'll go to show you the people that do that and the people that get drawn in, they're going to come back and they're going to keep coming back. And then hopefully when you need a chairperson the following year and you need a treasurer the next year and then the president the next year, they may be the ones. And the only reason they're going to do that is because they were asked or they were engaged at that first meeting they went to. Motivate, incentivize, and thank your members, especially virtually. You could do different things, contests, or just make sure you're thanking your members for everything that they do. And then set a goal and involve your members and continue to update them. If you don't have a membership chair this year, consider that for next year. Make someone that's going to be dedicated to ensuring that you take your membership number from this year and where you want to see it for the following year and how you're going to get there, and make them push it and make sure they're involving all of the members all the time, because everyone is part of the membership committee. Everyone is part of the membership team, because everyone knows different people. And so everyone can bring in different perspectives and ideas into growing your membership. So that's just a little bit of what we wanted to talk to you about membership. There's so much more on membership on the national PTA site and on our New Jersey PTA site. So this is the membership campaign link, pta.org/membership campaign. As you'll see there, there's a membership campaign implementation guide. It's got sample email signatures, amazing cool new Zoom backgrounds, and so much more. Also, for anyone that is from a PTSA or a SEPTA, for so long there's been no resources for them. They've added so many cool things, and for PTAs as well. There's customizable posters, flyers, Facebook posts, videos, and even a new national PTA commercial that has come out. And it's really cool because that graphic on the right there that has the different images, that's a customizable. So you can obviously, you could send that out just like with those pictures, or it's customizable, where a lot of PTAs this past year have put their officers in those blocks so they could see it, and it makes it, because it's got the PTA all over it. And then the final slide I'll show you before I introduce our next speaker. National PTAs put together so many resources for COVID. The link's at the bottom, and we're going to be sending out this the video and those slideshows, so you'll have the link so you don't have to write it down. They've created mini trainings. There's 15-minute trainings, how to run your PTA virtually, how to run a PTA virtually in an elementary school, how to run a PTA virtually in a secondary school, virtual meetings, and a quick 15-minute training on the membership campaign itself. So take a look at there. There's so many great things. And always, as always, share with us, njpta@njpta.org, any great things or ideas that you have, or anytime you need any assistance with anything, we're here for you. Okay, and so our next speaker, and I updated the PowerPoint and I neglected to put someone's picture in it, so hopefully she'll share her face so everyone could see how amazing she looks tonight. Lori Palmer is our state treasurer, and she will be doing finances in your PTA.
Thank you, Rob, but no, I'm not going to share my face tonight. I'm still dressed in my work clothes. So as Rob said, my name is Lori Palmer. I'm the 2019-2021 NJPTA treasurer. The treasurer is the authorized custodian of all the funds of the association and receives and disperses all the monies in accordance with the budget as approved by the association's general membership. Next slide, thank you. Let's start by delving into the business part of PTA and how our mission relates. All local PTAs in the state of New Jersey, through your affiliation with New Jersey PTA, are a 501c3 organization under IRS codes. But what does that really mean to be a 501c3? Due to our mission, the IRS has granted the PTA to be a tax-exempt, not-for-profit company. This means that for any items or services that you purchase, you do not have to pay state taxes on through that, and you're exempt from your federal taxes. That's the word I'm trying to look for. Next slide. These are some of the IRS rules for 501c3 organizations. There's more of them in an IRS publication. You can Google search information on 501c3 status. The IRS requires you to annually file a Form 990. It would either be a 990N, a 990EZ, or a plain 990. These are like your personal 1040, and just like your 1040, it's IRS law that you file it annually. There's also a rule that no one individual can benefit from PTA funds. For example, if your PTA raises, let's say $10,000, instead of spending it on all the grades in the school, whereby all of your students would benefit, instead the PTA gives out one $10,000 scholarship to one student in your school. That would be an example of something that's not allowed because only one individual is benefiting from all the PTA funds. 501c3 organizations are not allowed to support or campaign for a candidate for public office, nor can they lobby. Upon the dissolution of a PTA, its remaining assets must be distributed to another 501c3 organization. That would be if your PTA ceases to function, all your funds could go back to New Jersey PTA, or they could be donated to another 501c3 organization that has the same mission that we do. As a PTA, you should never allow another organization or group to use your 501c3 status. At the local level, often that means you should never loan your gaming license to another organization. That's given to you and you alone, not to be used by any other organization. Also, to keep your nonprofit status, remember the PTA mission statement. As Kathy has said, that is what guides us. If you're ever in question, look at that. What you should be doing, which should be following our mission. Next slide, please. So the duties of the treasurer. The treasurer has a lot of responsibilities, and this is going to be a simple overview of the duties. The treasurer, of course, needs to maintain accurate and current financial records of their PTA. The treasurer is a likely candidate to be involved with the preparation of the budget. You need to pay bills on time, and that includes remitting to New Jersey PTA monthly the dues that are owed to New Jersey PTA. That includes the portion that goes to New Jersey PTA as well as National PTA. All of that goes into New Jersey PTA and we distribute it back to National. The treasurer must present a treasurer's report at every board of directors meeting and general meeting. Every time you go to a meeting, you should make sure you take all your financial records with you in case there's any questions that anybody wants to ask, or if anybody asks to see the books. Any paying member of the PTA is allowed to ask to see your books. You should provide your PTA committee people with the PTA's ST5 certificate. They should use that certificate when they purchase taxable items for PTA events. The ST5 is the New Jersey sales tax exempt form, which proves you do not have to pay sales tax in the state of New Jersey. The IRS 990, the New Jersey CRI form, and the New Jersey annual report filing will be discussed on the next slide. And the treasurer also prepares financial records for the Financial Review Committee. Next slide. Even though the treasurer is in charge of the actual record keeping of the PTA's finances and funds, it is everyone's responsibility to know what is happening with your PTA funds. As Kathy said, especially the president should always be aware of what is going on. But every member of the PTA has a fiduciary responsibility to be aware of what's going on with the funds and to make sure that they're being allocated correctly. Next slide, please. This is the sample of the ST5 form. All of these forms can be found on our resource hub. The ST5 form, as I said, use it whenever you go to purchase something that would otherwise be taxable. This is the only way the tax will be not charged to the PTA. Next slide. So if you can't find your ST5 because somehow in the change of officers, that little form got lost, you can reach out to the New Jersey Department of the Treasury to obtain a new one. And this is information on how to do that. Again, available on the resource hub from us. Next slide. The standards of affiliation, Kathy touched on it a little bit. We're NJPTA put together the standards of affiliation to provide support and guidance to the local PTAs and councils. The checklist is given to you to help you navigate the legal requirements. They're not all requirements that we've come up with. A lot of them are requirements of our state or federal government. It's not just things we made up. They're laws that you have to follow these. The Resources Hub has a full training video and best practices and tip sheet for the standards of affiliation checklist. And we're going to cover just the items related to finances. He's jumped ahead of me on this. Thank you. And the standards of affiliation, we're only going to, as I said, talk about the ones that relate to us. We're going to talk about numbers 1, 2, and 3 later. We'll start with 6, 7, and 8. 6 is your local budget being adopted by your general membership. After your board determines the budget, you, the treasurer, have to present that budget to the PTA's general membership meeting for adoption. You must present it at the first general membership meeting of the year, which is usually back to school night for most PTAs. Number 7 is talking about paying your dues to New Jersey PTA and National PTA. As I said, one set of money is sent in each month to New Jersey PTA, and we distribute it between us and National based on the amounts allocated to each. Number 8 discusses your local PTA financial review. At the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th, the treasurer should prepare all your financial records and hand them off to the financial review committee. There are instructions on the financial review form telling you what you must provide to the financial review committee. The financial review committee is made up of at least 3 members of your PTA. None of those members can be signers on the checking account during the fiscal year that is being reviewed. Now, next slide. So your PTA budget, who prepares the budget? The president should ultimately ask for volunteers, but some of the logical choices for people on the budget committee would be a past president, a past treasurer, the current president, the current treasurer, fundraising chairman, or anybody on your PTA who's been around for a while, has knowledge of what has been done in the past and can be helpful in predicting what is needed for the future. So how do you determine your budget? First, you have to determine what your goals are. That's what you want to spend money on and how much money you're going to need to do what you want. A budget is a representation of those 2 monetary figures, how much money you need to bring in and how much money you want to spend. The budget is a projection of income and expenses. You would base this projection on last year's income and expenses. For example, if your fall fundraiser last year was projected to bring in $15,000, but it only brought in $12,000, when you make up this budget, you're not going to go with $15,000 because you didn't make that last year. You put in only $12,000 or maybe even a little less. It isn't a bad idea to underestimate your income a bit and likewise to overestimate your expenses by a little bit. That way you'll always leave yourself a little cushion. The budget must indicate what your PTA's cash on hand at the beginning of the fiscal year is. Remember that your fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. The budget must include all projected income from all sources, and it also has to include all projected expenses. Remember that items such as NJPTA convention, county council dinner meetings, national convention, those are all legitimate expenses for your PTA and can be in your budget. After the budget is completed, as we said, it must be presented to your PTA board of directors, and then you have to present it to your general membership meeting, again, at the first general membership meeting of the year. The next slide will show you a sample budget. Fundraising. We've also mentioned that fundraising is not the main reason for having a PTA, but it is a necessary evil. That is one of our main ways of raising funds. In order to carry out the mission, we need money, which, as we said, most often we acquire that by fundraising. Before fundraising, you need to determine how much money you need and what do you want to spend it on. And that's how you decide what fundraisers to do. So if you look at your budget, you'll see how much money you plan on spending. If you figure out how much money you're going to get into dues, most of the rest of what you need comes from fundraising. Raise the amount of money you expect to spend in that year. There's no need for large carry forward balances, and there's certainly no need for savings accounts in local PTAs. PTAs do not need an emergency fund or a rainy day fund. Unlike our personal lives where we can have emergencies, your car breaks down, the heat breaks, you need a new roof, we don't have those expenses in a local PTA. What fundraisers should you run? That is really up to each local PTA, and every PTA may be a little different. Do fundraisers that you think would be successful in your community. What might work at your PTA is not necessarily going to work in a PTA in the next town. Next slide. As a charitable organization in New Jersey, PTAs are legally allowed to hold bingos, 50-50s, raffles, gift auctions, turkey trays, etc. But in order to hold any kind of game of chance, you must apply for a biannual license from the New Jersey Legalized Games of Chance. You also have to apply for permits for each gaming event from the municipality in which the event will be held. So that means you apply to New Jersey for a license, covers 2 years. If in the first year you have that license, you want to hold a raffle and you're going to hold it in Trenton, New Jersey, in the state capital, you have to apply to Trenton to get a permit to hold that event there. If later in the year you're going to hold an activity in West Windsor, New Jersey, for that activity, you still have your license from the state, but you now have to get a permit from West Windsor to hold that event. That being said, a license and permit are only necessary if you are charging money for the event or for the tickets. If you're having a free event and you're giving away door prizes, nobody had to pay anything to get in, you didn't charge them for anything, you're not selling tickets for the door prizes, you don't need a gaming license or a permit for that. Those are just free giveaways. New Jersey state law, this is very important, requires you to have a separate checking account for all gaming activity. So if you have a game of chance license from the state of New Jersey, you need to have a separate checking account that is only used for your games of chance. All income and expenses relating to gaming must go in and out of that account. That way, when or if the legalized games of chance from New Jersey comes into your PTA and they want to audit your gaming information, they only want to look at that one account. They want to see everything that's related to gaming in and out of that account. They don't want to have to look through all of your membership dues and the money you got for selling sweatshirts and all of that. They just want gaming all by itself. Next slide. Bookkeeping. Organization is the key to proper bookkeeping. You need to keep a current check register. You can use a handwritten register. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. You can use bookkeeping software such as QuickBooks. If anybody's interested in QuickBooks for their PTA, they don't have it. For about $50 through TechSoup.org, you can consider buying the QuickBooks software. And you might, if you have money in your PTA and can allocate it for it, you could purchase an inexpensive laptop for the treasurer, load the QuickBooks software on there, and then every time you get a new treasurer, that laptop and the software is passed down from treasurer to treasurer. Therefore, all of those records are easily transferred from one treasurer to the next. Next few slides, we have a couple of aids for the treasurer. The next slide would be your income voucher. Anytime you're accepting money, if you had a fundraiser and you're accepting money, use an income voucher. When you receive the cash, have at least 2 people count it, and they should sign off on the amount on this voucher. You should never be the only person counting that money. Always have somebody else counting it. Better yet, have 2 people counting it, have them sign off so that there's never a question of how much money was given to you. If anybody is reading the chat, apparently we had an increase in costs and QuickBooks is $75 now. Thank you for that update. Check request form. Anytime anybody needs to be reimbursed for something, they should fill out a check request voucher. All of this will leave you a paper trail. So when they go to your financial review committee goes to look at your books, they have paperwork to see what money you brought in, every check you sent out, the check list, as you can see, it lists everything on there, and it's signed by both the treasurer and the president saying that they looked at it, they approved the voucher. And check request vouchers should always have receipts attached to them, backing up the request for the reimbursement. Next slide. Copy of a reconciliation worksheet. Depending on your age, you might actually remember these from the olden days when they were on the back of your paper bank statements you used to get so you could reconcile your own accounts. I know nowadays everything's online, so we don't have those anymore and everything's done by computer. But this can be used because you must reconcile your check register to the bank statement every month. This is going to ensure that you have accurately recorded all income and withdrawal items. Also, your insurance policy mandates that you have a non-signer, somebody who's not a signer on your account, reconcile this check register monthly to your bank statement. They want to make sure that someone who does not have access to the money via check rating capability is looking at the PTA funds. This is another reason why if you bring your books, your check register, income and check vouchers and bank statements to your monthly meetings, it's much easier to have a non-signer reconcile the account. During that meeting, they're there anyway, and they look over and reconcile them. That way you don't have to find another time to get together with them. Next slide. According to your bylaws, the president and treasurer must sign every check. Your insurance policy usually requires, sometimes they're changing that, to have 2 signers on every check. But as a state PTA, we require you to have 2 signers. It's a check and balance. That way, no one person has access to all the funds in your account. There always has to be 2 people checking to make sure that the items that are being released, the funds that are being released, are legitimate and budgeted expenses. You must have a 3rd emergency signer on your account in the event that one of the 2 main signers, the president or treasurer, is indisposed. The 3rd signer, again, we're changing the bylaws, so they'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it's always been the recording secretary, or if you only have 1 secretary, it's that secretary. So those would be your 3 signers, with your president and treasurer being the main signers and the 3rd signer being there in case of an emergency. And remember that signers on your account cannot be related. You can't have husband and wife people signing, sisters, brother and sister, mother and child, cousins, any other relatives. And last one should all be in big red letters. Never, ever, ever sign a blank check. If you, as a treasurer, sign a blank check and hand it to someone, that's like giving them access to all the funds in your account. They can write that check out to themselves, to their friend, to their relative. They can go buy a house with it if you have enough money in your account. You've just given them the keys to the kingdom. Checks should only be signed when they're filled out, amounts paid to the order of, you sign it, and that's why the second person will then look at it also and make sure that it is signed. When you receive cash, don't take the responsibility, as we said, of counting it alone. Have at least one other person count it and sign off on that voucher to make sure that it's correct. Next slide, we'll discuss treasurer's reports. There are sample treasurer's reports available on Resource Hub. Also, you can simply Google search PTA treasurer reports and you'll find them from all over the country, and see bylaws, treasury reports, everything is available on Google now. The treasurer's report runs from meeting date to meeting date, and it will capture all the financial transactions that occur between those dates. So you're presenting a treasurer's report at every board of directors meeting and every general membership meeting, but it's not going to be the same treasurer's report. If your board of directors are meeting monthly, then the board of directors treasurer's report goes from 1 month to the next. But if your general membership meetings are every 3 months, your first general membership meeting will be from whenever your last general membership meeting was till then. A lot of times your last general membership meeting may be in June. Your next general membership meeting is going to be back to school night. Your treasurer's report should cover that span, or the next two between your first one, which would be back to school night, and maybe one around Christmas time. It covers a 3-month span, so it's going to be a much more extensive report. But it's still, if you stuck all of your board of directors meetings, treasurer's reports together, it would equal what all of your general membership meeting. It just covers different dates. Again, as I said, and we can't stress this enough, have your books at every meeting, because there may be questions, and your books there will let you answer all those questions or allow somebody to see whatever question that they have. They can look it right up. How do you present the treasurer's report? That is really a personal preference. You can email it out before the meeting. You can project it on a screen at the meeting. You can print it out and distribute it. You can read it aloud. You can have, walked it around to everybody's house and stuck it in their mailbox. However you want to get it out, as long as it doesn't even have to be out before. Some of those methods, it comes out at that meeting, as long as everybody has the ability to view it at the meeting when you present it. That's fine. They could either have it ahead of time or they could get it at that meeting. At least they have it to see and can ask any questions that might come up. The next screen is a very small sample treasurer's report. Most PTAs will have a much more advanced treasurer's report than that. Next slide. We've talked a lot or mentioned the annual financial review a lot. It was previously called the internal audit. We have since changed the name to Financial Review Committee. As we mentioned once, it's comprised of 3 members of your PTA, and those members, the committee is appointed by the PTA president. The Financial Review Committee members cannot have been signers on the account during the period being audited. If they're signers on the current year's account, that's fine. But if you're auditing last year's books, they can't be anybody from last year's signers. The treasurer should be available during the Financial Review Committee's meetings to answer any questions by the committee if they arise. But again, the treasurer cannot be, if they were the treasurer of the year that's being reviewed, they cannot be on the committee, but they should be either available in person or reachable by phone, because the Financial Review Committee may have questions. The financial review form usually can be downloaded from the New Jersey PTA Resources Hub. Right now, the one for this fiscal year, July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 2021, is not available yet. But as soon as we get to the point where you guys would be needing to worry about reviewing because you got to wait till the end of the fiscal year, then it will be available on the Resource Hub. There are self-explanatory instructions with that form telling you everything you have to provide to the audit committee as a treasurer, sorry, financial review committee as a treasurer, so that they'll be able to review the books. Remember that all of your PTA's money must be accounted for in the financial review. You have to include information for all of your bank accounts. So you're basically reviewing every bank account. If you have 4 bank accounts, you do 4 different little forms for the amount of money you started with, the amount of money you brought in, the amount of money you spent, and the amount of money you're left with. Don't put them all together on one form. Audit each account separately. The deadline for submitting the financial review to the New Jersey PTA is August 31st, and you can do that review anytime after you close your books for the fiscal year. Next slide. We discussed a little bit about the IRS filing. You have to annually file a 990 form. Which form of the 990 you file is dependent on your gross income. As you can see here, $500,000 to $200,000 of gross income, you get to file the 990 EZ with certain schedules. If I forgot the first one, if you gross $50,000 or less, you file the simple 990N online only. You don't even have to fill out any paperwork. And if you gross over $200,000 to $500,000, you file the 990 with the same schedules. Gross income, remember, your gross income is all the money that has come into your account through the year. That would be all of your membership funds, all of your spiritware sales, all of your fundraiser income. And when we talk about spirit sales or fundraiser income, when you're talking about gross income, if your fundraiser, as a treasurer, when you add up all your fundraiser deposits, you have $50,000. And then you paid your fundraiser company $40,000 for the goods. So you actually kept $10,000. Your gross income is the $50,000. The $10,000 is your net income. IRS doesn't care about what your net income is. They want to know what your gross income is. The IRS will automatically revoke your PTA's tax exempt status if one of the Form 990s is not filed for 3 consecutive years. Very, very important. Don't ever let this happen. File the form annually. Don't let it lapse for even 1 year. It is a very time-consuming and costly process to regain your tax exempt status. There are many, many forms to fill out. You're probably going to have to go back and find all of your old records. And there are penalties and interest and everything else that you're going to have to pay the federal government for not filing on time. Next slide, please. The New Jersey CRI filing. This is your charities registration form. If you gross under $10,000, you do not have to be registered with New Jersey Charities Registration. However, you can always choose to register anyway. If you are registered, you have to file a form annually and pay a required fee. If you gross under $25,000, the fee is $30. If you gross between $25,000 and $100,000, the fee is $60. And if you gross over $100,000, the fee is $100. And you can't just say, well, if I don't ever register, I can get out of filing the forms, because if charities finds out that you grossed more than $10,000 in any given year, they're going to expect a CRI form. And just like with the government, if they find out you haven't filed, they will make you go back and refile previous years, and they also charge penalties. And again, costly and very time consuming to go back and do the charities registration again. Thank you. The New Jersey annual report has to be done only if your PTA is incorporated. If you don't know if your PTA is incorporated, you can always probably, hopefully find somewhere in your records the articles of incorporation. But most PTAs who are incorporated actually use the initials INC after their PTA name. So you would be the ABC PTA Inc. The annual filing fee, last we looked, was $25.50 if you don't change the registered agent, and it's an online only filing. Your registered agent is where paperwork, that's a person on file that the state of New Jersey would be able to send things to if they needed to. If you use one of your officers, the problem with that is every time you change officers, you would need to change that registered agent, and they charge you, last I knew, it was another $25 to change the agent. So a lot of times PTAs will pick somebody who is a little more consistent. If there's a teacher liaison in your school, and you can use their name so that paperwork would go to the school address. That way, hopefully that teacher will be around in a longer time period than maybe a particular officer will be. Next slide. This is a very important slide. Again, should be available on the resource hub. If you have questions about your IRS group exemption, your annual report, how to get your ST5 form, or questions or need another copy of that, this is a nice form that was put together by one of our members to give you where you go for all that. Mailing address as well as phone numbers or websites that you can go to. So if you have questions, financial questions, a lot of the things can be answered off of here on where you go to get more help. Next slide. Believe it or not, we've now reached the end of the year already. So what does the treasurer have to do at the end of the year? You need to make sure that all of your books are in order to turn over to the Financial Review Committee. You have to make sure that all invoices that you've received have been paid. Make sure that your standards of affiliation have been completed. You know, all the things on there that are related to finances. If it's the end of your term, you should not only do all of that, but you should meet with the incoming treasurer to explain the whole process, and normally to hand over the financial records, with a little caveat there, because they will have to go to the Financial Review Committee first before they can go to the next treasurer. When it is time to hand over the items to the next treasurer, all of the financial records go to the next treasurer. They're the lawful property of the PTA, not of the individual officer. And you should instruct your incoming treasurer, if somebody is following behind you, to attend NJPTA officer training, either in person or online. Next slide. So after the financial review is finished, if you are still associated with the PTA, or whoever is doing this for the treasurer, gather up all the information that the Financial Review Committee had for the fiscal year they just reviewed, put it all together in a large envelope, write the fiscal year on the envelope, and store it with all the records from prior years. IRS retention time is 7 years. So at the end of every year, when you take that envelope and you put it into your little box with the last 7 years, you can take out the oldest one so that at all times you only have 7 years in your little box. Ideally, financial records should be kept somewhere in the school. So if you can find, plead, beg, and borrow with the school to find a little cookie somewhere that you can put your items in, whether they have a file cabinet you can use, if there's a little closet in the library, a closet. I know in my elementary school, there was a little closet off of the cafeteria that we used to be able to store some of our items in, but we had a little section where we could store our records. Ask the principal if there's any space somewhere. Maybe somebody has an office or a classroom that has a little shelf that they're not using for something that, you know, is safe, that you can put your financial items in. It's available in the school if it's needed, but it doesn't have to be kept with the treasurer. If you can't, then what happens is it ends up being that traveling box that goes from this year's treasurer, and then the box goes to the next year's treasurer, and they not only get the position, but they also get the box and get to find a home in their house to store the box. Remember, the 990 and the CRI can be filed when the financial review is complete. Even though if you look at the standards of affiliation, the 990 and the CRI are not due until later in the year. The 990 is due November 15th of every year. CRI is due at the end of December every year. You do not have to wait until November and December to file them. Just like people with their own taxes, everybody knows April 15th is tax day. But once you get all your tax information, and especially your, form from your employer, you can file them the next day. I've actually known people who have filed them in January and actually don't have to worry about April 15th. That's another day on the calendar. Same thing with the 990 and the CRI. As soon as possible, file them. One less thing you have to worry about later in the year. I believe the next slide either sends us to somebody else. Oh no, they've added a couple slides for me. A lot of these are also things we've talked about. Never, ever, ever sign a blank check. As Kathy said, the principal is in charge of the school. You are in charge of the PTA. The PTA is not an ATM for the school. It's not a place for the school to keep coming and saying, we need this, we need this, we need this, buy us these things. All of our fundraising should support our mission. Just as Kathy said, you don't necessarily want to take donations from places that don't follow our mission. Same thing with fundraising. You don't want to fundraise if it's not something that supports our mission. And we've talked different ways about ensuring that proper financial controls are being followed. Next. Different ways you can use PTA funds that are legitimate expenses. Insurance for your PTA to cover bonding for your officers and people that handle your money. Sometimes you will need liability insurance if you're holding events. School districts will often ask for a copy of your insurance policy with the liability so they know you're covered if anything happens during your event. The training that we're having right now, while these trainings are free, sometimes some trainings have costs. Leadership training. In the past, we've done summer leadership. That's been a longer event. There's cost to that. Those are legitimate expenses. Bringing in cultural arts programs or assemblies for the educational benefit of the students, legitimate expenses. We've mentioned the New Jersey Leadership Convention and the National Convention in your county council events. Recognition awards for student achievement, curriculum enhancement, and then within reason, equipment. We're not in an ATM for the school, so you don't want to have them think that every time they need something for the school, instead of getting it from the school district, just go to the PTA. But if there's something within reason that they need equipment-wise, yes, you can purchase that with PTA funds. But if you were to purchase, let's say, a smart board for the cafeteria at your school, you always want to gift that to the school so that they now take responsibility. If it breaks, it belongs to the school. They're not coming back to PTA saying, your item broke, fix it for us, because it's no longer yours. Gift it to them. But understand, once it becomes property of that school district, because you're gifting it to the district, the school board basically has the authority to take that purchase and put it anywhere in their district because it belongs to the district, not the particular school. So you could buy items for your school. You don't have to maintain them any longer, but they could one day move somewhere else. It is always our hope that they don't do that. They leave them where they were gifted. But that is not in the PTA's control because we don't run the school. We only run the PTA. Next. Now that was my last slide. So now I turn this over to our NJPTA Secretary Ginger Reinhold.
Thank you, Ginger.
Sorry about that. Put me on video and forgot to take me off mute. I'll say it again, I'm Ginger Reinhold, thanks to Lori, and I'm Ginger Reinhold, the State PTA Secretary. So here is my presentation on the Secretary's job. First slide, Rob. Okay. The duties of the Secretary are to attend trainings like the one that we're receiving tonight. There are National has e-learning courses. We also have our resource hub, and counties do some. So there's plenty of trainings out there. So never hesitate to attend 1, 2, or 10. Keep accurate and concise records. And you know what, Rob, I'm missing something. I'm going to go, if everyone doesn't mind, I'm going to lose my the video because I can't read all the words here. Okay, keep an accurate and concise record of the proceedings of your PTA. Prepare your minutes to be approved, create and send meeting notices, and write letters that are authorized by your president. What you need to bring to every meeting: your local PTA bylaws, have the minutes from past meetings, a red pen or pencil for corrections, membership lists for Member Hub, and paper for ballots. Should you have a vote, they can be done verbally, as in A or I or no, or you are going to need, sometimes you need a ballot vote. So should you need a ballot vote, of course, you're going to need pieces of paper, and hopefully everyone has a pen or pencil. If not, have that for yourself. And there should be someone that'll collect them for the president. She'll appoint someone, they'll collect them, and then they'll do the voting. Next slide. What are the minutes? The minutes are a legal document, recording of what was done at the meeting, not what was said. They should never reflect the opinion of the secretary on anything said or done at the meeting. And what I mean by the first portion there, what was done at the meeting and not what was said. Should a motion be brought to the floor and there's going to be a discussion, you do not have to write down everything that everyone says about the motion itself. You will just put in your minutes discussion, and then you will write down what happened after the vote was taken. Next slide. What goes in the minutes? The name of your PTA, the type of meeting, which would be a general membership, board of directors, or committee, the date, the time and place of the meeting, the name and title of your presiding officer, which is your president, more than likely, or if she has someone that's filling in for her, it would be them. Attendance list, which you can attach and have everyone sign in when they come into your meeting. And previous meeting minutes, you want to keep that in your folder. You need to have your treasurer's financial reports in there. You want your board of director and officer reports. You want your motions, name of the person making the motions and the result of the vote. You will have the time of adjournment. And then once your minutes are approved, you will have the signature of the secretary and the date they were approved. Next slide. What if there are changes? If there's changes like you see right here, you would circle, in this case, Susie in red, because Susie's sister Amy made this motion. So you circle Susie in the side, you would put Amy in red, and that's how you would adopt your the change in your minutes. Next slide. Record what is done, not what is said. Essentially, you're writing like it's like a newspaper. You're going to write the headline. You don't need to write everything under the headline that happened. You just really want the headline. Proposals are offered in the form of a motion that the group do something. A motion begins with, I move that, and then the proposal. When you hear the words, I move that, the secretary's cue is to take down the next statement. Next slide. This is a copy of a motion slip. Use motion forms to write the exact words as stated by the chairman and adopted by the majority. And the chairman is your presiding officer. Attach the original written motion to your notes. You can do that yourself. You can also have the person come up and let them write the motion so that it's exactly as they want. And your presiding officer will read it as is, and then they will sign the motion slip. Next slide. A motion example. James Olson says, Madam President, because our third floor meeting room is not accessible to disabled members, I move that all meetings be held in room 141. So the secretary's notes would say it was moved by James Olson that all meetings be held in room 141. The motion was adopted or defeated, and you attach the original motion slip to your notes. Next slide. Committee reports. They can be written or presented orally. I'm sure, as many of you may know, committee heads will report at each PTA meeting. But if you have a nice president and you have a nice committee chair, they would be able to type up that their report, and then they would be able to email it to the secretary, and she would have it ready to go. And then that committee chair would just get up and present it to their membership, but the secretary already has it written. She's ready to go. It can be for, committee reports can be for information only or end with a recommendation on which the body takes action. Committees need not report if they have nothing new. Next slide. Reminders. Record all counted votes, both for and against. Record the name of committee appointments and nominees. Do not record the debate. Do not record the discussion. Do not record personal opinions. Minutes are permanent records of your PTA and must be kept forever. As Lori said previously, if you have a closet or you have anywhere in the building that you're able to store your stuff, I would say keep it in a box. As now these days, you have the flash drive. If you want to put your minutes on a flash drive, keep them in there so that at the end of the year, you have that drive. And if you ever need them, you can just put the little drive in a box. It's so much more, it's easier to keep that way. I would still suggest you keep typed copies, because you might want them at your, which I'm kind of going back. You can keep them for any of the general membership meetings, have them there should no one is able to print them out. You can also send your minutes that will need to be approved at a next meeting through Member Hub, or you can send it through email if necessary. I would suggest that you put draft or send PDA or PDF so that no one can change on the PDF. If you put draft on the top, this way they know that those minutes have not been approved yet. So you can also, I would suggest you do that, but keep them, you have to keep them. So you want to keep the, I'm kind of repeating myself, which I'm sorry. I would keep the typed copies in your folder. This way you have them all year long. And if you have to go back, they're right there for you to read should anybody need a question answered. Next slide, Rob. Records you need to keep. You need to keep your legal records, which would be your charter, your initial charter, your bylaws, your standing rules, which you will be hearing about. So you should always have standing rules, and the minutes. You need to keep your previous minutes. You need to keep a copy of your agendas for the year. You need to keep a list of your officers and your chairman and your committee heads. You need to keep current reports, and you need to keep financial reports, which would be your treasurer's report. Next slide. And that is it for secretaries. And now coming up will be, for bylaws, will be Stephanie Bowe. And thank you all for your time.
Good evening. Happy to be here with all of you tonight. My name is Stephanie Bowe. I am the New Jersey PTA Procedures and Bylaws Chairman, 2019-2021. Bylaws, as you all probably know by now, are the basic rules of your association, the PTA. And by IRS rules, every nonprofit is required to have bylaws, and many state laws, definitely New Jersey, requires you to have bylaws. They are a legal document. New Jersey PTA requires at this point that you review and renew your bylaws every 3 years. Hopefully, our delegates, hopefully all of you, will be attending the 2021 New Jersey PTA convention coming up soon, because we need our delegates to vote to create generic bylaws for all PTAs. This would mean a few things for the local PTA. New Jersey PTA thinks it's important that we do pass this bylaws change at convention. So we need you all on board with it. And I'm going to explain to you some of the benefits of that coming up soon, I think on the next slide, or I'm going to incorporate it. Okay, so before I jump into standing rules, let me tell you why we want to have generic bylaws. Generic bylaws is going to be a plus for everybody all the way around, in that, number one, you are not going to have to renew them every 3 years. The main reason that New Jersey PTA is doing this is that at this point, there is so much set language in the bylaws. In other words, there are so few things that you can presently change in the bylaws that they're so uniform all across the board for all our PTAs. We decided that it would just help everybody all the way around, particularly you, our locals, to just make them uniform for everybody. So everybody's going to have every PTA is going to have the exact same document. So at this point, you might be questioning, well, what about those few things that we can change in the bylaws at this point? And those few things that you can change right now are the amount that you pay, that your members pay your PTA for dues, how many years your officers would serve their term, either a 1 or 2 year term, what month you have your election in, and that's basically about it, and what your quorum number is to get business done at your meetings. So all of those questions now are going to be answered in your standing rules. So you're going to have uniform bylaws, but you're going to have another set of rules called standing rules. So I like to describe both of these documents as bylaws are a document that has rules in it that apply to every PTA in New Jersey across the board. But standing rules are going to be specific to your PTA. I like to define standing rules as a document that somebody could pick up, somebody that is brand new to your PTA, and pick this up, read it, and see how your PTA is run. So if all of your board members were to leave tomorrow and a whole brand new set of board members came in and nothing about your PTA, they could look at your standing rules and see how your PTA was run previous year. So standing rules, again, are going to be unique to your PTA. So they're good for other things too. They help derail conflict, because a lot of times people want to see where in writing it says that. Why are you doing that? Why is the PTA doing that specific thing? Well, now it's going to be in black and white in your standing rules, and you can point to that. The standing rules are adopted by your board of directors. They will help your board be more transparent. In other words, everything's written down. So again, somebody says, well, where's that written? It's in your standing rules. Some PTAs around the state already have standing rules. I know it's going to be new to many, but I think that once everybody's turned on to how standing rules can help you, you will really appreciate this document. New Jersey PTA will be distributing soon. We are in the process now of creating a template that will give you a jumping off point on how to create standing rules. Next slide, please. Okay, this probably should have been before the standing rules slide, but regardless, bylaws, like I said, they're going to be hopefully going to be uniform, but even if that does not get passed, our current bylaws should always be followed, should never be ignored, can never be set aside. Slide. when you can make amendments to your bylaws. The few things that you can even change in them, you can make amendments to them. They have to be presented to your general membership for approval to make amendments. And okay, so yeah, but they can be changed. So a lot of this is changing because if this gets passed, you will not be able to make bylaws amendments anymore. If we pass a generic bylaws situation at, hopefully we're going to pass that at convention, you will not be able to amend your bylaws. So once we do, and if we do pass generic bylaws, New Jersey PTA office will send every PTA the new version of their bylaws. Slide. Okay, so again, some of this information is going to be changing. How do standing rules differ from bylaws? Standing rules, as I explained before, are unique to your PTA, while bylaws apply to all PTAs. Currently, standing rules do not need to be adopted by your general membership, but because if we do pass the generic uniform bylaws at convention, your standing rules must be adopted by your general membership. So your standing rules are going to be created by your board of directors and approved by your board of directors, but then they must go to your general membership for adoption because remember your dues amount is not going to be in your bylaws anymore. It's going to be in your standing rules, and you want your general membership to be apprised of the fact of if you have a change in your dues. You're not just going to raise dues on them without their approval. So that was your dues was in the bylaws. Now it's going to be in your standing rules. So yes, you have to present them to your general membership. How they differ right now, standing rules, if a PTA does have them, they do not need to be sent to New Jersey PTA. New Jersey PTA would, if general uniform bylaws are passed at convention, New Jersey PTA would like to have a copy of your standing rules. You can upload it just as you do your bylaws now. You can upload it through Member Hub. We just want them on file. We're not approving them. We just want to have them on file for a reference, or if a situation were to come up in your PTA and we need to see what your standing rules say when there is some sort of a problem or a member asking a question, we would like to have them to refer to, because don't forget, your standing rules are going to be different from PTA to PTA. They're all going to be unique. So we would not know what your unique situation is unless we had a copy of them. So what you see on the screen right now do not need to, currently standing rules do not need to be adopted by your general membership, but if uniform bylaws were passed, yes, standing rules does have to be adopted by your general membership. Standing rules do not need to be approved by New Jersey PTA and will never be approved by New Jersey PTA, but we do want you to send a copy of your standing rules to New Jersey PTA if uniform bylaws are passed. This has all gotten just so very confusing. Again, I did say before, standing rules are created by your board of directors. Should review them from time to time. Standing rules can be reviewed during the year, that you do not have to do them, just once annually. If something's not working, you can tweak them during a year, but then you would have to, if it's something that your general membership needs to know about, then yes, they would have to be taken back to your general membership for adoption. That's it. Most importantly though, standing rules, no matter what you put in there, the standing rules can nothing in there can conflict with your original bylaws. So that's a must. Next slide. Okay, so that was it for standing rules and bylaws. Now we're just going to run right into nominating committee and election. So what is the duty of a nominating committee? The nominating committee is the committee that's supposed to identify upcoming possible leaders for your PTA and to recruit members and accept nominations for the office to fill the officer roles of your PTA. The nominating committee is supposed to, this is what we're hoping, find the most qualified candidate for each elected position. Slide. So qualifications for nominating committee members. Every nominating committee member must be a current member of your PTA. However, the current president, even though they are a current member of your PTA, is not allowed to serve on the nominating committee. As was said earlier in this presentation, there are two committees that the president cannot sit on, and that is the nominating committee and the financial review committee. Nominating committee members should know about your PTA's goals and definitely have the best interests of your PTA in mind. Nominating committee members must be willing to put the time in to fulfill the whole nomination process. It's not a very lengthy process. It's not a very tedious process. It just takes some time from the time you're elected to the time nomination information is put out, collecting the nominations, reviewing the candidates, and that there is a little bit of time involved. So it is a commitment that you should be on board with. They must be sincere in their effort to choose the best candidates for officers of your PTA. That will ensure the longevity of your PTA and ensure that your PTA is run by the best qualified people. They should all be able to hold a confidential discussion and, sort of keep things under their hats as far as potential nominees go. Next slide. Nominating committee election. The nominating committee members must be elected by the general membership of your PTA at a general membership meeting. My suggestion would be that you nominate you elect your nominating committee at your very first general membership meeting of the year. That way it's out of the way. Many times this is forgotten about, and then comes, it's rolling around March and PTAs are like, okay, it's an election year. We have to fill positions. We don't have a nominating committee. And now it's sort of running late because maybe all your general membership meetings, but one are done. And your last general membership meeting is your election meeting. So you don't have time to do the whole process. So my suggestion would be elect your nominating committee at the first general membership meeting of the year, usually in September or October. You can, obviously now we're doing virtual meetings. So obviously they can be they can be elected at a virtual meeting following New Jersey PTA virtual meeting guidelines. And as I said, definitely do it very early in the year so to get that out of the way. Slide. Okay, so here's the timeline for nominations. After they're elected, hopefully, at the first meeting of the year, the committee members choose a chairperson from amongst themselves. The committee should meet with the president to review the procedures for your nominating procedures. Hopefully there is a procedure book from the prior year. There is a handbook on the New Jersey PTA resources hub that is very useful and spells out everything in detail, much more detail than what I'm giving here on what to do when and how to do it. The committee will communicate at one point to the general membership that they are soliciting nominees for the open officer positions. Nominating committee then reviews the nominations and can interview them, can look over the qualifications, and then choose the best candidate for each open officer position. Remember, this shouldn't really be a popularity contest. It should really be about picking the person that's going to fill the role best and run the PTA well. Then the nominating committee, as a courtesy, informs the president of the slate that they've chosen. Then the committee announces the slate to the general membership, and there are all timelines for when this should be done, again, in the handbook. And once they announce the slate to the general membership, they're also going to send the general membership instructions on how to run from the floor. Say a nominee did not get put on the slate, but they want to run against the person that's slated. They have the right to do that. That would be running from the floor. So there are instructions on how they would go about doing that. Again, detailed procedures in the nominating committee handbook on the New Jersey PTA Resources Hub. Slide. I think we're done. Nope, important things to remember. Regardless of the number of times someone's nominated, the person that's picked, everybody should be evaluated by the same criteria. And hopefully the nominating committee will take their job seriously and pick the very best person for their job. Again, it's not a popularity contest. It's about who's going to do the best job in the role. the nominating committee is not required to select only from the nominees. If the nominating committee themselves, the people on the committee have been soliciting or looking for a qualified person to fill a position, and from amongst all the nominations and that person they themselves have found, they think the person they found was best, they could put them on the slate. Again, it's about picking the best person for the job. Like they're obligated to seek out the people who would best serve the PTA in each office. Slide. And we're done. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, well, it's been very quiet in the chat box and the question and answer box. So this is the time that we're going to turn it over to Rob, and he's going to run the question and answer period. Hopefully, after all of this information, you guys, are ready to ask questions. So the question time is open now. You can unmute your computer and ask any question that you may have.
Yes, we're going to send out the recording and the slides. And if you would like to unmute yourself, I'm just going through and looking. Whoa. Yes, we post, Julie, we post all, almost all, when we remember to post them, all of the trainings on the Resources Hub. If you go to the Resources Hub, there's a button that says online training, and there's recorded sessions like this one will be posted. And then we also, each of the presenters also did individual presentations over the summer. So if you just want them to review one of the presentations, they are there as well. Vanessa, you can unmute yourself and ask if you like.
Awesome. Well, first I want to say thank you for this training. It was great. And I actually have a question for Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. It's Vanessa O'Keefe from Bethlehem Township. And I have a question about the proposed bylaws and the standing rules. So when are we going to be able to see the proposed documents? I know they come out sometime before convention, but I didn't know if they we're going to get sent out before, and if we could have any little trainings or anything beforehand so that we could speak more appropriately during convention. Does
Yes,
that make
yes.
sense?
Yeah, hi Vanessa, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Yes, we are. We're, like I said, we're in the process right now of coming up with a draft standing rules. We have uniform bylaws that New Jersey PTA Board of Directors has already approved and passed. And yeah, we're planning like a little town hall type of meeting, or a couple of them, maybe even before convention, to present this to everybody. So yeah, that stuff will be going out soon for everybody to see. Like I said, this is something that other states have done it, and it's working out well for them. And I think this is going to be a more valuable tool really for most of our PTAs to have standing rules that are, like I said, unique to them. They're going to be a more usable tool for them. And our bylaws, I don't know if you've been around the block, if you've been around the PTA block long enough, you will have seen that many more things in the past were changeable or fillable in our bylaws, and we've narrowed them down and down and down, and a few left of them. They're almost uniform now. So this is just I think going to be good for everybody involved. So yeah, those documents will be going out soon. In fact, I'll discuss that with our people soon to get that.
Yeah, Stephanie, I'm just gonna chime in. Yes, we're planning on having hopefully one in March, 2 in April, and 1 in May. So there should be at least 3, possibly 4. That's going to explain the bylaw changes and show the a template of standing rules.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Right.
Hi, I have a quick question. I'm participating as the Cooser PTA treasurer, and I just took the position this school year, and it's a bit confusing in terms of the required paperwork to submit. Is there a way that I could get, in touch with someone that could help me figure out what has been turned in already or what is missing?
Yeah, you can, don't call the office tomorrow, but email me at njpta@njpta.org. And we could set up, I'll check everything before we talk, and we could set up a time to talk, to go over it.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much.
Deb, if you want to ask your question, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I didn't want to talk over anybody else. Thank you, Rob. I have questions regarding some budgetary issues. As you know, we were a PTO and things were run very differently. So my first question, which I think I answered, is scholarships. So we could award a scholarship. The thing that tricked me up was where it said no one person could benefit from PTA funds, but that doesn't keep us from doing an 8th grade scholarship at the end of the year, correct?
If anyone wants it. Well, the difference is because it's a member would be a member of your PTA, but even high schools still do scholarships for members. It's because it's a scholarship, you're opening it up to everyone. It's not just like the PTA parents' kids get the scholarships. It's open up to the whole school, so that's fine. Yep.
Okay, so any 8th grader in the school is eligible for said scholarship. This year we had a past teacher pass away, and they want to do a scholarship in her honor, but they wanted to fundraise and give whatever funds were raised towards the scholarship. My thought was we should just put a specific dollar amount to the scholarship and not necessarily fundraise specifically for it, because otherwise it's a moving target.
Yes,
Well,
I would agree to that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next question, which I believe was answered. So awards and stuff. So if we wanted to award the students that achieve marking period, honor roll each marking period, that is acceptable.
What kind of an award? Like a monetary award?
No, like a cookie or a bag of
Yes.
chips or just some.
That's acceptable. As long as it's open to all the kids who receive the honor roll, yes.
Okay, yeah, we used to do like a pretzel party, which obviously we're not doing that because of COVID. So we were trying to think of something else we could just send home to them. And it has to be packaged and all that stuff. Then also in terms of our 8th grade, so we're K through 8, and traditionally we haven't done it this year because the kids can't eat in school, but the PTA used to pay for 2 pizza parties for the 8th grade each year. That's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
As long as you put it in your budget, all this is known if you budgeted and then your general members vote on the budget. So,
Okay, it is in the
yes,
budget.
so put it all in your budget. If not, you would have to amend your budget at a general meeting, but as long as you put it in the budget and your people vote on it, you're good.
All right, and then my last question regarding that is prior years, the 8th grade class would flow money in and out of the PTA. I'm kind of thinking that advisors should probably set up their own checking account and their monies need to flow in and out of their own account, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Well, yes.
Yes, unless if it's sponsored by the PTA, then the money's coming out of your budget. If there's a separate committee that's doing it all on their own and it's not a PTA function, then they can't put their money through your account.
Okay, like they used to hold a full plant sale that purely went through there, but it would float through our budget.
And what did they do with that money?
It would always go to the 8th grade trip, which we didn't do anything this year because there's no 8th grade trip this year.
Well, if you wanted to put 8th grade trip in your budget, as long as it was going, so as long as it wasn't individual, like, if my kid did $10 and your kid did $20 and you were giving it to that child individually, no. But if you want to do a plant sale or whatever, a pancake breakfast, obviously you have to do different things now because of COVID. But if you wanted to do that and give the whole amount to the 8th grade trip, you can do that. But, it can't go individual. So if they're fundraising individual, no. if it goes to the whole trip, yes.
All right, because the previous years they did do individual, like they
Yeah.
kept track of what each kid fundraised and that went to their kid trip. And then if they didn't say the trip cost $500, if they only fundraised $250, the family had to pay the balance of the
Yeah,
$250
no, you
for the
can't do
trip.
it that way. But if they wanted to do it and it would just go off the top of the trip, let's say the trip is $5,000, the plant sale brings in 2,500, the 2,500 goes on the top, comes off the top, and then the students all split the other 2,500. That's okay, but it can't be like
Okay.
$10 for Sally, $20 for Henry. Can't go like that.
Okay, can't go. Okay, I didn't think that was cool. And then I guess my last question is, we had done, what do we call it? We called them, student assistant program, where, let's say, one of our students was in need in eyeglasses and the family couldn't afford it, or something else. Like, is that an acceptable use of term? Like, we wouldn't know who the student was. It all flowed through the student nurse.
Yeah, no, that would be considered individual.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can help them, meaning try to get services for them or something, but yeah, that's individual. You can't, yeah.
You can't use the PTA funds for that.
But
If
let me
if at a
just,
PTA,
yeah,
if at a PTA meeting, somebody took up a separate collection and
yes,
you guys said, okay, we all wanted to donate. That's not PTA related. That's you people as individuals deciding to do something. But you can't use like your money, because if you think about it, people that have contributed the fundraising, that's going towards your budgeted expenses. They're not necessarily buying the wrapping paper so that somebody can get glasses. That's not a budgeted expense.
right. But
Okay.
you
And
can
it's- and it's-
also, put out a flyer on your PTA page that the nurse needs money for, or whoever's doing it for, student assistance. Some families might buy a gift card and send that in. It just can't go through your card. But the other thing that I want to say is, even a PTO, if you're a registered 5013C, you can't do that. So this isn't
Okay.
PTA rule. This is a nonprofit rule in New Jersey. Some people follow rules, some people don't. Obviously, we have to answer to the state. We're a large association, so we make sure everyone follows rules. But it's not PTA's rules.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll just say there's a reason we became a PTA. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And Debbie,
Um,
if you have any, if there's other questions that you can think of that you might need to have answers, as we said earlier, Rob is always in the office and he can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, yeah, Rob's been very helpful. I guess my last question, and it could be more specific to us and not for the general public. So Rob, if you want to just shoot me an email later, we're just wondering how much longer it will take to get our 501c and all our proper documentation.
I'll email you. I'll email you because I have some stuff ready to go to you.
Okay, awesome. All right, yeah, we did our member hub training, so we're ready to get rock and roll in there.
Awesome.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
Christina, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So I just want to make sure I understand something about fundraising. So you guys were just talking about the example of like an 8th grade like scholarship. So it is okay for the PTA to fundraise for something that is, like for an entire grade, like, the 12th grade thing or the 4th grade thing. Okay, great. And
Just be careful about how much you're spending on a grade. We
Okay.
have some PTAs that, they're spending an exuberant amount of money on one grade and the other grades aren't really getting anything. And, obviously you have to put it in your budget and your members have to vote on it. So that's number one. But just be careful how much you're spending on one grade, because some years are better than other years. And you don't want to spend, $20,000 one year on a 5th grade celebration. And then the next year, you have $2,000 to spend on it. So I would just be a little careful and make sure the general members vote on that.
Okay. And I have 2 more questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
you were saying, okay, so we can't like say, thank you to the local pizza place for your donation, everybody go eat at Mike's, but can we publicly thank the business?
Of
Like, we
course
can
you could thank them. Yeah.
share
You
for-
can even say, thank you to Mike's Pizza for your for your donation. And when you're in Mike's Pizza, please say, please tell them thank you on behalf of the ABC PTA. You can say that. You just can't
Okay.
say go to Mike's Pizza and eat on a Friday, Mike,
Gotcha.
whatever. So, there's ways around it, but, just, make sure you're not endorsing their pizza. You're saying thank you for the support.
And then
And
some real quick on that too, Christina, something that's nice that I used to talk about in other membership presentations is if a company like that was to donate money, you can make it a big deal. Like, you're not gonna, like Kathy said, but like maybe make a sign for their window and spend a couple of dollars on a small plaque where you could say official, not official partner, but like sponsor of such and such PTA, and so they can hang it in their thing. And then places like that, they're allowed to do things. So if they said like, if you wanted to make a deal with them and say, all PTA members get 5%, 10% off pizza on Thursday nights or something like that, that's all allowed because they're a sponsor of you, but you're not saying this is the only pizza place you can go to in the town.
So
And-
Rob, oh, I'm sorry. Along those lines, like we used to have gift auctions and spell ad space in the program. Could you also then list them on your website, but not on your social media?
Oh, and you could do it on the social media too. You
Yeah.
could say thank you to all of our sponsors of our chance auction. Yeah, that's completely all right.
And you could list them like,
Yep.
okay. We just can't say go to Naples Pizza.
They're the only place in town to eat
Right.
pizza at.
Okay.
and you were using the example of an adult store. And now, did that decision not to accept that donation from an adult store, is that something that was like voted on? Like, if, for example, we have a cigar shop in town, if they wanted to make a donation, like, is it that the PTA does not want us to accept a donation?
No, I'm not saying we don't want you
Oh,
to.
okay.
I'm saying that you should go to your board and talk to your board. Make sure, if you're advertising it on anything, the school website or something, I would just run it by the principal. It was, yeah.
Okay.
That's all.
And
Yeah.
and then my very, very last question is, you were saying that the president shouldn't be too political or opinionated on social media. Is that in general, or just like on if the
On your
has a
PTA
Facebook-
page.
Okay.
On your PTA page. I would also watch, what you put on your personal page while you're president. If your personal page says, my personal page says, I'm the New Jersey State PTA president. I do not post anything political. I do not, say anything about school board candidates. I don't do anything because I have it listed that I'm the state PTA president.
Gotcha.
When I'm not state PTA president anymore and I take that down, I'll put whatever I want to put on there. But yeah, true. So if you want to, you want to put stuff on your page, don't have on there that you're the PTA president or the treasurer or whatever. Take that off, but definitely not on your PTA page. But if you identify yourself on your personal page as the PTA president or the treasurer, or whatever, don't post anything like that on there.
All right. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
welcome.
And Kathy, I was gonna also comment on that even when you're going to school board meetings, if you have a concern and you're attending school board meetings and you're going as a parent, make sure that you identify yourself, that you're there as a parent. Sometimes, we say, oh, I'm the PTA president and I'm here as a parent. Whenever you're speaking on behalf of your child as a parent, you want to identify yourself just to separate that too.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? So I did have a question by a lot of PTAs in the past 2 weeks about insurance and in the virtual world. So I'm just going to put this out there just in case you have this question in mind or someone asked you. So I I have someone at AIM that I spoke to, so I know a lot of PTAs have AIM insurance. I'm not endorsing AIM. I'm just telling you that this is who I spoke with, AIM insurance. If you use a different insurance company, please check with your insurance company. But with AIM insurance, all your virtual events are covered as long as it's a sanctioned PTA. If it's your PTA meeting, or you're doing a virtual fundraiser, or you're doing a virtual activity for the kids, you are insured. If you're doing an outdoor event, like I know a lot of the PTAs are doing stuff outside where they're picking up fundraising events in the parking lot, or some PTAs had like some pumpkins patch stuff, or trunk or treats at Halloween, and some, I know the spring is coming, so if you do anything for the spring outside and it's at your school where your insurance is located, you are covered. If not, you still have to go get your your addendum, let them know, and then you can still get covered if it's at another venue. So that works the same way. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So again, still check, if you don't use AIM, check with your insurance company. But if you use AIM, you're covered for virtual events.
Thank you. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I'd like to thank all the presenters for presenting tonight. And I'd like to thank you again for attending. As we said earlier, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call the office. We are here to serve you and be of assistance to you. Thank you again for coming tonight, and have a good week.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone. Thank you.
All
Good
right,
night.
thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Leah.